These things used to strike fear into people, and you're probably thinking I mean whatever happens because of the button press was striking fear. But no, I mean the button itself was causing fear. And so did this, and this. The rise of magical functionality happening from the push of a button was quick and actually frightened a substantial portion of the population. I mean, for most of human history, we've been able to easily visualize the cause and effect of every action, and all that happens in between those. But the idea of push buttons hid away any sort of intelligence behind a black box, without even a noise if it's electronic. So that all you could see is the cause and the action, but none of the magic in between. Fears arose surrounding the risks of people not being capable of understanding the magic that's happening in the black boxes behind the push buttons. The general population already had fears surrounding electricity, and the electric push buttons were not exempt from this fear. In many cases, it seems to have made it worse, as the user cannot actually see what's happening behind the magic interface. In 1889, the following was written by the author in an educational journal. I have known persons who were afraid to have an electric bell in the house, and have been told that such cases are common. These persons are even afraid to ring an electric doorbell. The article goes on to discuss efforts in schools of getting children used to electric buttons early on in life, and says this was to remove the feeling of awe as of unnatural agency that many have for electricity. Over 20 years later, in an editorial in 1915 to readers of Electric World, the following was said: steam and gas, being tangible, need no explanation, but the illumination of a room or a whole house by merely pushing a small button far exceeds the darkest magic of the East. A year later, in 1916, an educator named Dorothy Fisher says, there's a great danger of coming to rely so entirely on the electric button and its slaves, that the wheels of initiative will be broken or at least become rusty from long disuse. These quotes demonstrate the fear of these buttons even from the educated members of the population, and the fear of buttons really is just an extension of what's sometimes called electrical anxieties. So things that are new and difficult to understand tend to scare people, regardless of how normal and unreasonable that might seem to us today. Around 270 BC, Plato discussed the fears surrounding people learning to read and write through a story he heard from ancient Egypt between the god Theuth and his king, the god Thamos. He goes on to quote Theuth, saying, "This invention, writing, O king, will make the Egyptians wiser, and will improve their memories, for it is an elixir of memory and wisdom that I have discovered." Thamos goes on to say, "For this invention will produce forgetfulness in the minds of those who learn to use it, because they will not practice their memory. Their trust in writing, produced by external characters, which are no part of themselves, will discourage the use of their own memory within them. You have invented an elixir not of memory, but of reminding." Basically, he thought the lack of practicing needing to remember something would lead to worse memories. And if this is true of writing, then smartphones must be erasing us entirely of any memory capability. I kid, of course, for the most extent. But we are carrying around multiple portable alarm clocks, notes for reminding, and access at our fingertips to more information than all the world's libraries combined. Thamos goes on to drop some truth that can be applied to many inventions we now fear in the modern era, say nuclear weapons or AI. The quote from Thamos reads, "Most ingenious, Theuth, one man has the ability to beget arts, but the ability to judge one of their usefulness or harmfulness to the users belongs to another." So there's no denying that the atomic bomb is a work of genius science, but its harmfulness and risk to the entire planet's safety arguably outweighs any good that came from such amazing science. It is crazy to think that there was a time where your average adult human could explain how virtually all human inventions functioned. Any given tool, say a pickaxe, a hammer, or a sword, inventions like a wheel or a trebuchet even. Contrast that with today, where our first waking moment is caused by an electric alarm clock, of which 99% of people couldn't explain the inner workings. It's crazy. I mean, if your phone is your alarm, then a crystal oscillator is your clock source with logic hardware configured by magical switches and touchscreen buttons to count the exact billion amount of times to the exact time you want to wake up, or more likely hate to wake up. So are the risks of reliance on our smart technology companions warranted? Could our normal human levels of memory and intelligence atrophy with the rise of portable smart devices and future artificial intelligence companions? It's truly hard to say, though as we've demonstrated, these fears are nothing new. There were previously mentioned fears in ancient Egypt surrounding the human population simply learning to read and write. And in the 1500s, Konrad Gessner, a Swiss biologist, disliked the new printing press invention, fearing it would lead to an information overload. Imagine what he would think today. And as electricity usage was spreading, people understood the power of the telegraph, as it allowed for long-distance communication that was never possible before. But there were fears that this new invention would bring along an unsightly army of poles and wires that pollute the view of our historic city, and that the electric telephone would discourage people from seeking out each other's in-person company, and now they would merely speak over a wire. Reminds me of the fears of people today, being afraid that, us kids are only gonna socialize online and play games, which I'm not saying these fears have no basis, I'm just saying that the fears are nothing new, and I think that's pretty pretty interesting. In the 1890s, with electricity making its way into houses and rising in popularity, even the United States President, Benjamin Harrison, was fearful of the technology spreading across his very country, and he reportedly would request that White House staff members turn the lights off for him as he feared getting electrocuted. Even the president did not want to flip the magic electric switches. So what does the evidence say about all this? Well, Harvard psychology professor William R. Keenan Jr. has said that the fears about technology crushing our ability to remember are overblown, though he acknowledges that while it may not impact our memory ability as a whole, specific memory tasks may be impacted. Princeton psychology professor Diana Tamir has done a few studies in this area of research. One was aimed specifically at finding the effect of encouraging people on tours to take more photos, and then comparing them to groups of people interacting less with their media capturing tech. In this study, and across 2 other studies, they found that using media led to people remembering their experiences worse than those that interacted with their media technology less. So while you may not need to fear the long-term effects of your puny human memory, I would consider limiting the technological distractions anytime you're in a moment that you would like to have a lasting, accurate memory. Drop a like if you enjoyed, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll see you guys at the next gate.